Moriarty. On this show, noted artist Tom Dunlay paints a winter scene in oil in the Boston school tradition. Born in Weymouth, Massachusetts, his father, who was an amateur painter, introduced him to painting at an early age. He studied for 2 years at the Massachusetts College of Art. He later studied with Robert Douglas Hunter in Boston and Provincetown, and then at the atelier of R.H. Ives Gamel. Dunlay studied with Gamel in Boston and in summers in Williamstown from 1973 to 79. Come with me to watch Tom Dunlay paint in the Boston school tradition and to see what is happening.
When I paint snow on a sunny day, as in this picture, which I'm going to use for my demonstration, I have no preconceived ideas or notions about how I'm going to do it. I don't have any formulas for what color blue I use for snow, on a flat plane, or what color snow should be on a raking hill, or what color the sky should be. Everything is based on what I see in front of me, and the tools that I have, which are basically 8 or 9 different colors, which are colors that actually Monet used and handed down the knowledge of the use of these colors through a number of Boston painters. This is what I make my decisions, based on the colors that I have to work with. First of all, I'll start to set up my palette. I always work on a wood palette. It's a middle tone, so rather than having a white palette where you're judging everything against a white canvas, I want to judge things on a more middle tone base. You can see there are areas in the painting here where you can match the tone of the palette. So it's going to make it much easier, to mix your colors. I lay my colors out like the keys on a piano. I start on the far left side with one of 2 reds that I use, and it's alizarin crimson. It's a wonderful color for getting those violets and pinky reds that you sometimes need. The primary red is going to be cadmium scarlet or cadmium red light in most brands. I always recommend using the best brand of paint you can. The world of paint today is a little confusing. There are a lot of forces at work, and manufacturers are trying to make their product cheaper, less expensive. As a result, they're degrading the quality of the paints they're making. One brand of paint I recommend for general use is Williamsburg. It's pretty good. It has less fillers than most manufacturers, and it's pretty affordable, even though they put it behind the lock and key in the art stores. The color I just put down was yellow ochre, probably the most important color that there is in painting. It's the one color that you can't survive without outdoors, and you can't survive without it indoors in the studio. So I'm going to shift over to Viridian, which is the one green I recommend. It's the only green. You don't need phthalo, you don't need any of those other colors, hooker's green or anything like that. And you'll actually use surprisingly little Viridian. When you're mixing your greens in the landscape, your blues and yellows are going to do most of the work. And speaking of blues, the first blue I'm putting down.
What yellow?
This was yellow ochre.
No,
The yellow.
Oh, I'm sorry, I passed over that. That's cadmium yellow pale. It's one of the 2 cadmium yellows that you would use. The other one is cadmium lemon. It's a little lighter and cleaner. But those 2 yellows for your cadmium yellows are all that you need.
And then you got the cerulean?
This is cerulean blue, which is absolutely essential in painting the landscape. And don't get swayed by any other colors like Severs or manganese. ultramarine will do all the work you need. The next blue is a little richer, darker blue, cobalt blue. Beautiful for the higher reaches of the sky like this over here. And the final blue is ultramarine. So this is for color, all you need. Painting out of doors on the spot. It's all I've used for 40 years. I've never varied once. These colors will achieve every color of the spectrum.
Where does white fit in?
Right here. Now, white is a real problem these days. The best white to use is flake white. And it's a real problem with the manufacturers because they're putting a lot of filler in these whites and they have less pigment than they used to have. So what I do is I put a long strip of the flake white right down the middle so that I work, my lighter colors on one side and my darker colors on the other side. This is Williamsburg flake white. I don't use any medium. There's really no need for medium except in very later stages of the picture when you need to, render some, delicate areas that the paint may be a little bit stiff. And at that point, you use a medium, just use a little bit of cold pressed linseed oil. But for this stage of the painting, on a lay-in, you don't need anything. Just turpentine, which is just simply used to loosen up the paint. So when I paint these pictures, I'm not a sketch artist. I'm not one of these people that's going to sit here in an hour and dash off a wonderful picture that is going to appear finished and everybody's going to marvel at. I'm one of those people that takes the slow road. A picture like this probably took 20 sessions to paint. This picture probably took 20, 25 sessions to paint. So it's a matter of going out every day when the light is right, the same time of day. I don't take photographs and then go back and finish it up in the studio. Now, the rule of thumb, and I'm sure a number of you heard this from various artists you may have worked with, is to work dark to light. And I do work dark to light. But for the sake of convenience and conveying a lot more information today, I am going to lay in the sky and probably the snow first because it's technically just easier to paint dark over light than it is light over dark. So I'm going to try to hit the general note of the sky to begin with.
Can you share what colors you just made?
Basically just the flake white, a little cerulean, some cobalt. I want to keep it cool and almost a little violet up top before it goes down to that green note. And always use the biggest brush that you can. It just makes life so much easier.
Is there a specific type of brush you recommend?
This happens to be like a number 10 filbert bristle brush.
The type of, the kind of brush? Is it a Princeton or?
Oh, actually, this is a rosemary. I bought a bunch of them in the early part of last summer, and They've been terrific. I like them a lot. They hold up to a lot of abuse.
That's what everybody says.
The other company I like a lot is the Da Vinci. They make a very good, brush of all types, whether it's bristle brushes or sables.
Do you ever use Gamsol or terpenoid OMS rather than?
I have very, very strong feelings on that, what to use as a solvent. Those are all going to cause you all the same problems that you think you're avoiding with turpentine. Trouble is turpentine, the kind of turpentine that's sold today is what's called wood turpentine. And when it's manufactured, it's processed with sulfates. It's not made from the sap of a tree. Real turpentine is actually drawn from the sap of a particular type of pine tree, and then it's distilled once, and then you have pure turpentine, which is absolutely marvelous. It's actually medicinal grade. And there is a place in Georgia that makes it, but all these Gamsols and all these other things, they're all petroleum-based products, and they're going to cause you the same problems, but everybody's trying to protect the environment, feed into everybody's, fears of working with turpentine. But if you work with real turpentine, you in most cases won't have any problem at all.
So you don't think there's a health difference between the real terp and the others?
Necessary to buy it, and it's a little patch, and it's like going back in time. It's a marvelous place.
What's it
It's
being
called
used as now?
It's a working farm and an educational
Oh, okay.
center.
That's amazing. Honey and Winchester. Yeah, she told me it was Winchester.
I don't know.
Doesn't work easy.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even realize it was like
So here we are. We've got to start making some decisions. And I do have the same exact problem. It's not a fear as much. When you start on the right, am I going to be able to, is that batch of trees going to actually be able to fit here, or is it going to have to be out here?
The diptych.
It's all about, seeing things in relation, seeing them in proportion. So right now, when I'm putting this in, I'm not going up there looking, this branch and whatnot. I'm just starting to put the masses in.
So lavender,
Well, alizarin, touch of the ultramarine, the white, and a touch of the ochre to warm it up a little bit. Well, what this whole process really is, a lot of people sometimes say, "Oh, you're so talented, and you do, really nice stuff." It's not talent at all. It was actually training and real understanding that it's a decision-making process, because everything in this picture that I'm rendering from has a shape. So when you put a mark down, very easy to compare your mark with what's out there or what's out there in nature before you. When you put a dark down, there's a degree of light and dark. All you have to do is compare what you've put down with what's in nature. And the important thing is not to leave the wrong thing down. You can for a little bit, because you might need something next to it to, adjust your analysis of what it is to correct it. But everything is decision making. Is it light? Is it dark? Is it red? Is it yellow? Is it blue? If it's red, what kind of red is it? Is it a brilliant scarlet red, or is it a violety red? Is it a warm red, a pink red, a golden red? Those are the kinds of decisions that go through my mind all the time. Yeah, that's one of the principles of the Boston School is you paint the picture as a whole. You don't finish any one area. You don't you don't do your sky and then you land and whatnot. You're painting it as a whole. So once you realize you're working on an area, a hair too much, then it's time to move to the next thing.
Really has great form and depth from here all the way to the back.
Well, that's the principle. The further you get away, the better it is. And the further you remove the actual painting from the subject that you're painting, it looks even better.
That's a great motion scene you got there.
I am going to do what I said. In the Palace Reach, it's limited in terms of clean space available, and I do need to shift to sort of start laying in this area. So,
Can you show us your palette to see what you consider dirty?
yeah, this is, but there's just too many big areas that logic and order, are the things that help keep you from getting in trouble. That's why I lay my paint out like the keys on a piano every time. I always know where the paint is, what I'm reaching for. Yeah, that's one of the principles of the Boston School is you paint the picture as a whole. You don't finish any one area. You don't you don't do your sky and then you land and whatnot. You're painting it as a whole. So once you realize you're working on an area, a hair too much, then it's time to move to the next thing.
Really has great form and depth from here all the way to the back.
So that's the principle. The further you get away, the better it is. And the further you remove the actual painting from the subject that you're painting, it looks even better.
That's a great ocean scene you got there.
I am going to do what I said. In the pageantry shifts limit in terms of clean space available, and I do need to shift to sort of start laying in this area. So,
Can you show us your palette to see what you consider dirty?
yeah, this is, but there's just too many big areas that logic and order, are the things that help keep you from getting in trouble. That's why I lay my paint out like the keys on a piano every time. I always know where the paint is, what I'm reaching for. The whole concept of this way of thinking, and it is a way of thinking, is to always be in search of the thing that's furthest wrong, and never, ever work on the things you're excited about. When you get that feeling, I love this tree. It's time to move to something else. Because when you work too much on that tree, then you're going to start to throw everything else out of whack. What you want to do is look at the thing that's furthest wrong and bring that up to the level of, that tree that you were so excited about. You were patting yourself on the back. So, what I've done here so far, it's a decent lay-in. I'll show you actually how I, go about correcting things. I've got a real problem here, that my area right in here is, more narrow than it, really is in life. Putting it down the way it looks.
Easy for you to say.
I mean, the one thing I will say about the way I work, there is no techniques, there's no tricks, there's no you do this, when you're doing, at this stage of the game. It's simply all observation and trying to put the right color down, the right shape, the right value, and that's it.
Thank you so much, Tom Dunlay. It has been a pleasure to watch you paint using the rules of the Boston school tradition. We should all try to follow you using these rules.